Hi, my name is Mark Michelson. I'm the brass repair technician at Arrowhead Music in Mentor, Ohio. Today I'm going to be showing you how to take care of your trumpet, how to clean and maintain it on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. I'm going to talk about what supplies you'll need, all the processes and procedures that you need to know in order to get the most life out of your trumpet. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's talk about daily maintenance. This means every time you take your trumpet out of the case to play, you're going to want to oil your valves before you play it. So on your trumpet, right here are these little valve caps. These should unscrew when you turn them counterclockwise. If for whatever reason these are stuck, don't try and loosen them with pliers or hand tools or anything. That's a big no-no. Just take it to your local music shop. We can get these loosened for you for little to no cost. So anyways, I suggest doing this one valve at a time. Don't take them all out at first, but in case you do, there's not a big deal. These are actually numbered. This will have a little number 1. See if I can get that to focus. Come on. Anyways, there's a number 1 right there. There it goes. There's number 1 on this valve. This one's going to have a number 2. That's going to be number 3. Now, your valve may or may not look like this. There are different types, different styles of valves, but they're all going to have something in common. They will have some kind of a valve guide. That's this little piece right here. On this particular style, this is an older Con style. There's a little valve guide. It's a little notch right there. This one has the valve guide actually incorporated into the side of the piston. And this one, again, this is, I think, from an old Bundy, I believe. It has a little notch right there. These little valve guides align the valve with the ports in your trumpet. These little tubes here, these little holes need to line up with those. The way you do that is when you put the valve back in, you twist the top of this until it clicks into place. Now, on some models, especially the older box, the valve will actually lock into place either the right way or completely the wrong way. A good way to test to see if these are lined up is if you just puff a little air through here. If you have airflow, then your valves are good. If it feels like there's a sock stuffed in your bell or there's no air going out there at all, it's probably just misaligned. You just want to make sure that it's clicked into place. A lot of models, the numbers on the piston will actually face a certain way. On this King 600, the numbers actually point that way. Sometimes the numbers will point this way. Sometimes they'll be pointed straight at you. But anyways, oiling your valves. All you got to do, get a little bit of valve oil. This is Alcas. Other valve oils are available. But you just take here's how I do it. You just take the tip of the bottle and you just run it across the bottom part. I don't like to, drip all over the place because that usually gets a little bit more messy. Another thing, you just oil the bottom part of this valve right here. You don't want to put oil up here near the spring or on the felts. You don't drip oil down the hole there. You don't put oil down into the holes right there. All you do, you just run the tip of the bottle along the bottom half near the ports. And that's all you got to do. Couple drops. Now, like I said before, these numbers need to correspond with these pistons, or these valve casings, number 1, 2, and 3. So this number 1, on this particular model, the numbers will face that way. Now, let's say I put it in all the way backwards. This little piston finger button will just spin, and I want to turn it until it clicks into place. And that's how you do that one. And the other 2 valves are exactly the same process for oiling. Pull out the valve gently. Run the tip of the bottle along the bottom half. And again, this King 600 number faces towards the bell. And once that's clicked into place, you just screw this down. You tighten that by hand. It doesn't have to be super tight. If they are loose, you're going to hear a little clicking. That just means you just got to tighten that a little bit more. And the third one, same idea. Just a couple drops here and there. That's all you got to do. Click that back into place, tighten that up, and you're ready to go. I would do this every time you play. Basically every day that you are playing your trumpet, it's a good idea to oil the valves. All right, so now that you got your valves all oiled up and you're ready to start playing, you take your mouthpiece and gently insert it into the mouthpiece receiver. You're gonna push this way just a little bit and give it like an 1/8 to 1/4 of a turn, and that's it. That's all you gotta do. You don't want to, even though that makes a really funny sound, that's a really good way to get this stuck, and we don't want that to happen. To remove it, all you do is you twist and pull. If for whatever reason this gets stuck, if and when this gets stuck, just take it to your local music shop. We can pull these for 9 times out of 10. It's free and it takes like less than 30 seconds. What you don't want to do is try and pull it out yourself by yanking on it this way, or taking pliers and trying to remove it that way. I can't tell you how many trumpets I've had to repair that were basically torn apart just because the mouthpiece was stuck. I would much rather pull this stuck mouthpiece for free instead of reassembling your broken trumpet that has, a twisted lead pipe and broken joints and braces that need to be replaced. I'd rather spend the 30 seconds doing that instead of the hour or so that it takes to repair a trumpet, and then, I have to charge you a bunch of money. So, long story short, if your mouthpiece gets stuck, bring it to the shop. We'll pull it for you. It doesn't take any time at all. So then after you've been playing for a few minutes or so, the moisture from your breath and a little bit of spit is going to start to collect inside your trumpet. And to get rid of that moisture, we use these little spring-loaded guys here. These are your water keys. And in order to empty out that moisture, you just puff a little bit of air through there while opening that. And that'll empty the moisture out of your main tuning slide. Your third slide should also have one of these. Now, in order to get air through this tube, you actually have to press down that valve. So to empty that one, press down the third valve, open that up, give a little puff of air, and that's pretty much it. Probably want to do that every, 5 or 10 minutes or so. It really depends on how much you're playing. But definitely empty them before you put them back in the case when you're done practicing. So let's say you're done playing for the day, empty the water keys, take the mouthpiece out, put it back in the case, and you'll be good for the next day. All right, so weekly maintenance. So you've been playing your trumpet for a few days, you've been oiling your valves. Let's do some week-to-week maintenance here. So first thing you want to do is to clean out your mouthpiece. Sometimes these can get pretty gross. So you get a mouthpiece brush like this. They're fairly inexpensive. So what you do, put a little bit of mild dish soap detergent like Dawn, nothing abrasive. Put a little bit on the brush, and you run that. I would run this probably under a sink with some lukewarm water. Clean that out, rinse off the soap, let it air dry, and you're good to go. That's how you clean your mouthpiece, once a week. Next, let's talk about greasing your slides. So for this, you're going to need some tuning slide grease. This is Super Slick tuning slide grease. Other slide greases are available. I just use this stuff because I like the way it works, and it's pretty simple. You're also going to need some type of soft rag or cloth. Now, all these little tubes here, these little slides, these should come out fairly easily. If they are stuck or if you can't move them at all, don't try and yank them out. That can cause some serious costly repair bills. I've seen trumpets that were literally in pieces due to people trying to move these slides out. Take it to your local music shop if it's stuck. We can get these unstuck. We have the proper tools. We use the proper techniques. Anyways, this is your main tuning slide, this one right here. And you pull that out. When I pull these ones out, I like to press the valve down that goes with that particular slide. Here's your first slide. This comes out. Again, should be fairly easily. Your second slide. On your third slide, on this particular model, there's actually it's a slide stop. This is kind of by design. So on this particular model, all you do is you unscrew the little push-pull rod, set that aside, and then your valve can come loose. Other models I've seen, there's sometimes a little stop screw about right there. You just unscrew that. Sometimes on box, you will see a little clip that looks like this, and it's usually installed kind of like this. So then this prevents that from coming out. All you got to do, take something soft. This is just like a little wooden dowel. Nothing that's going to scratch the surface, but all you do is you put that into one of those little grooves there, and that just comes right off. And then you can set that aside. So first thing you want to do with your slides is take your soft rag or cloth and wipe off all the old grease. Main tuning slide, here's your third one. Sometimes on this particular one, it's a little dirty. We're going to give this a bath here pretty soon. But wipe off all the old grease. That'll get off the old grease and any dirt. Again, just use a soft cloth. Your second slide. All right. Then you just take your tuning slide grease. And with this particular type that comes in like this little tub, all you do is you put a little bit on your fingertip. You don't want a huge gob. You just want to put a thin coating on these surfaces here. And then when you go to put this back in, the way I like to do it is I use one slide at a time. I'm going to put this in there like that, and I'm going to use the slide to kind of help spread it around. Usually if you put too much on, there's going to be some excess here. You can just wipe that off with your cloth. And the top one. And when you go to put these back in, you want to be careful. Sometimes these don't line up all the way, depending on how well maintained your trumpet is. Sometimes these tubes won't line up because it's either dented or dropped. If you can't get this back in, don't try and force it. Again, just take it to your local music shop. We can get these straightened out to make sure that it's easy to move this in and out like that. On the other slides, it's just the same process. Let's do your first slide here. Again, just a thin coating. And use the slide itself to kind of help spread it around. And we'll do the top one. And putting your valve back in, or your slide back in. And wipe off the excess. Second slide, this one barely takes any slide grease. Just a little tiny bit. Spread that around. And putting that back in there. On your third slide, if you have, where'd that go? There it is. If you have one of these clips here, put that on the slide first before you put it back on. Again, just a little thin coating. It doesn't take a whole lot. On this particular one, you just put that in there, and then that'll click back in like that. But on this particular model, it's just this little push-pull rod that goes in like that, and you just screw this back in, and that's pretty much it. On the kind with a stop screw, unscrew it before you take it out, and then once you have that in place, you just put that little stop screw in. Again, this particular one should move fairly smoothly. If it doesn't, again, take it to your local music shop. But that's how you grease your slides. So weekly maintenance, clean your mouthpiece, grease your slides. You'll be good to go. All right, monthly maintenance. So it's been a month or so. You've been oiling your valves, you've been greasing your slides, you've been taking good care of your trumpet, making sure you're not eating before you're playing, or having some soda and then playing your trumpet. That can get pretty gross. So in the event that you do need to clean your trumpet, it's time to give it a bath. So what I have here is a tub filled with lukewarm water. don't use hot water. You can actually damage the lacquer on your trumpet. You also want to fill it with a little bit of dish soap. Any dish soap works. You don't want to use any hand soaps with like lotions or creams or anything, just regular dish soap. You want the water to be pretty sudsy. I haven't used the soap in here just so you can see what I'm doing, but again, mild, lukewarm water and it's a little bit of dish soap. You also need a few brushes, and you'll recognize this one. That's your mouthpiece brush. This is a valve casing brush. This cleans out your valve casings, obviously. But also, my favorite, this is your snake brush. A lot of times when you get them, they are kind of wound up like this. Let me undo that off camera. And there's that. There's all the brushes you need. Next, you want to disassemble your trumpet. What you don't want to do is just dunk the whole thing in the water, all right? So first, you take out your valves. You don't want to put your valves in the water. We'll talk about that in a second, but you just unscrew your valves, pull them out, set them aside. Now remember, if you lose track of which valve is which, there's going to be numbers on the sides of them. So this is your first valve. Again, don't put that in the water. Second valve. Third valve. Everything else can get wet. Everything else comes apart. Take out your main tuning slide. Here's your second. If any of these tubes or slides don't come loose, don't try and yank them out. Again, you can seriously damage your trumpet by pulling these solder joints apart. It's a very costly repair. So if these don't come out freely, take it to your local music shop. We'll get it fixed up for you. Remember, on the third slide, sometimes these will have some type of slide stop. That comes off. One other thing I forgot to mention, if you take your tuning slides out and they look like this, you can see there's like some green powdery substance inside there. Sometimes it's on the outside of the valves. This is actually lime scale that is chemically attached to the brass. This can come from your saliva, especially if you've been eating before you play. But this stuff usually does not come off with soap and water. You actually need to clean this chemically with acid. It's not just any acid. It's a special band instrument repair acid, or you can have it ultrasonically cleaned. But if your trumpet slides look like this, you definitely need to take it to your local music shop to get a chem flush or ultrasonic cleaning. Okay, back to the video. I've done this in a tub. You could also use a bathtub or a sink. Just be warned that if you do use something with a drain, put a screen over the drain or a towel or something, just so that you don't lose any of these small parts, especially like these little valve caps. Sometimes these get stuck if you haven't been cleaning it regularly. Again, don't use pliers or anything on these instruments. Brass is made of metal, but it's a very soft metal. You can easily damage it. When in doubt, take it to your local music shop. All right, so you got all the tubes in there. This, I got all the valves out, the slide tubes. This can just go in the water like that. Now, all you got to do is use your snake brush. Let's do the slide tubes first. Sometimes if you put your brush in the top one right here, sometimes it can get stuck on the hole where the water key is. So I usually go through the bottom. I like to do this when it's submerged. Again, if it's been a while since you've done this, you might see some interesting things floating in the water here. This trumpet itself is already been cleaned. When you use the brushes on these slide tubes, like their first, second, and third, don't try and force it around these bends. Just really, this is meant just to do the straight parts. So think about how long that needs to be right there. So you want to use about maybe that much. Clean out the first slide. Second slide. Again, don't try and force it around these bends. You can and will get it stuck. Third slide. you can use your valve casing brush to clean your little valve caps here. These are usually pretty gross. And I just kind of rub that along there, clean those off. Set those aside. All right, now let's do the rest of the trumpet body. And again, you can let this soak for as long as you need it to. Sometimes it helps get it a little bit cleaner if you let everything soak first. But when you use your snake brush, you're just going to use it to clean these tubes out here. Don't force it all the way in so it goes into the valve casing there. This can easily scratch those valve casings. That can cause your valves to not work as well. So again, think about how much of the brush you need to go in there. So let's say about that much. Cleaning out the first slide, the second slide. I usually like to do this when it's submerged. Now we do the third slide. Again, just doing this gently. You don't want to force this through. Again, you can see I've actually gone into the valve casing like that. So I've gone actually a little bit too far. This can easily get stuck in there, so you want to be very careful, especially on this third slide. Just nice and gently. These last two, this one right here and this one, are usually the grossest ones. Again, just gently cleaning it out. If it's been a while since you've done this, or if it's the first time you're doing this, you're probably going to see some interesting things floating through the water. I've seen many different trumpets. This last one, this is your mouth pipe. That's usually the dirtiest one. So you want to clean this a couple times. Now you use your valve casing brush to clean these on the inside of here. I don't like to go all the way through like that because this can actually get kind of stuck. So I go about maybe halfway up, use about half the brush. I'll do the bottom half of each one and flip the trumpet over, and I'll do the top half. All right, so now that that's all clean, let's rinse it off. Since I do a lot of these, I actually have a dedicated hose and a little nozzle attachment that I use to clean these, to rinse these off. So I usually do the slide tubes first, empty out all the, the soapy water, and I just like to use these. Actually, I like this one better here. Trying not to get my laptop wet. Turn that down just a little bit. There we go. That's better. You want to get all the water out of the insides of your tubes and also off of the outsides. Shake off the water and just set them aside to air dry. I do not recommend using a hair dryer or any compressed air. That can cause more problems than it solves. Now, when you take this out, the trumpet body, if you take it out with the bell side up, this whole bell section right here is going to be full of water, so you want to be careful. Just dump that out. Again, just rinse it off. This works really nicely if you have one of those detachable shower heads. You can just take your shower head and clean off, rinse off all the soapy water. Again, you want to use lukewarm water. Don't use hot water. That can actually damage the lacquer on your trumpet. Clean the bell out, rinse that out. You could see eventually the water will start coming out of the valve casings. And I just gently shake this off. And I'm just going to set this aside to let it air dry. Also, these valve caps I forgot about. Rinse those guys off. Set it aside. Push-pull rod. These usually aren't too dirty. If you want, you can use your valve casing brush to kind of clean this off. But usually, just soaking that in the soapy water will help. Also, you can clean your mouthpiece too. Get your mouthpiece brush, clean that out. rinse it off, shake off the excess water, and set it aside, let it air dry. All right, let's let our trumpet dry off. Okay, so now I'm letting my trumpet dry off. Let's clean your valves. So the reason why you don't want to just dunk this whole thing in the water, you have these little felts. Sometimes they're made of cork, but these little things, there's one there, and there's usually another one there, or sometimes it's up inside of the finger button. These little felts and corks actually determine how high and how low your trumpet valve goes when you press it up and down. If these get wet, over time they can deteriorate, so it's best just to keep them dry. So what I do is I take my mouthpiece brush, and you just want to clean the bottom half of it. Again, you don't need to clean up here any. You want to use your mouthpiece brush, just gently clean out those ports there. Doing best to follow the line, of the port. This one goes in diagonally. Just cleaning off the bottom part. There's actually a hole. It's an air vent that goes from the bottom of your valve all the way inside, comes out the top inside there. So this can actually fill up with water. You want to shake off the water and rinse it off. And you just do that with the other two valves. So I won't do both of these, but again, just using your mouthpiece brush, cleaning off the bottom half, rinsing it out, shaking off the water. And that's how you clean your valves. Pretty easy. Okay, so now that your trumpet is done air drying, it's just time to reassemble it. And it's the same process as before when you're greasing your slides and oiling your valves. Usually, after I give it a bath, there might still be some excess water in the tubes. You just want to make sure you kind of gently shake that off. You can even take your soft towel or rag and wipe off any extra excess moisture or any dirt that you may have missed on the slides. And let's grease them up. A little bit of tuning slide grease. Again, just a little bit on your fingertip. You don't need a whole lot. Spread that on there. A little bit more. And again, the way I like to do it, I use one of them at a time. This just helps spread the grease. When you go to put this back in, again, remember, if these don't line up, don't try and bend it or twist it in any way. If this doesn't go in gently or easily, take it to your local music shop. We can get that fixed up for you. All right. First slide. Second slide, just a little bit on this guy here. Flip it over, do the third slide. Remember, you may or may not have some type of slide stop on this one. This particular one, it's just, you put this on after you put the slide back in. And some models, it might be this, this little plastic clip, or you might have a thumb screw in there. Just make sure, especially with the thumb screws, you have it screwed out before you put it back in. Then you screw the thumb screw back in. The cool thing about these particular styles is on these student trumpets, this little ring here is actually adjustable. So depending on how big your hand is, you can kind of customize it in a way. Now my ring finger, when I put it there, it's not stretched too far or too close. This way I can move that slide nice and easily. Let's say if you have like a smaller hand, you can just move this in or out as you need to. So let's see. There we go. And that's good to go. Then you just oil your valves. I usually start with the third valve first. And I'll show you why here in a second. But it's just like oiling your valves, like I showed you before. Just a little bit on the bottom half. Now, remember, these are numbered. So your third valve, one has a number 3 on it. Sometimes they're on the top right there, sometimes they're right there. But your third valve will go in the third casing right here. And these numbers on this particular model face the belt. Sometimes they'll face the mouthpiece, sometimes they'll face, like, you know, you, the camera. But these little notches will line up with the little, you probably can't see them, but there's like a little groove inside of your valve casing that help align the valves. And the reason why I do the third valve first, when I tighten that back down, if you imagine blowing air through this tube, goes all the way through here, it hits that third valve first. So just to double check to make sure my third valve is lined up, it's good to go. Again, sometimes these, especially on, you know, certain Bach models, they'll either line up the right way or completely 180. So just double check, give a little puff of air. If you can breathe through it, you're good to go. If it feels like there's something stuck in your bell, your valves are probably just not lined up. Number 2. Give it the little air test. All right, and number 1. Click that into place, screw that down, just finger tight. Remember, if these aren't screwed in all the way, they'll be a little noisy, so just tighten that up and you're good to go. Now, I usually put the valve caps on last because, remember, you may have remembered I mentioned before, there's these little ports inside the bottom of those valves. Sometimes those fill up with water. So before I put the caps on, I like to kind of gently move those up and down like that. Sometimes that'll shake off. See, I got a little bit of extra water in there. That will remove any excess water, and then you can just go put your valve caps back on. Now with these, it's really easy to kind of cross-thread these, so you want to be careful when you put these back together. These aren't numbered, by the way. These can go in any old casing. Come on. These are sometimes a pain. There we go. And last but not least, number 1. And that's pretty much it. Now, sometimes after you're done cleaning it, you might have some fingerprints or some water spots left on your trumpet. They do make plated and lacquer finished polishing cloths. They're separate cloths. The lacquer plated or the lacquer finished cloths are one thing, and then if you have a silver trumpet or some plated finish, you use a separate cloth for that. You can use that to wipe off any fingerprints or water spots or anything. You can even do that on a weekly basis. But what I like to do, a little trade secret, and I only use this on lacquer finish, a little bit of lemon pledge. Don't just spray the whole trumpet. All you do, you just get a soft cloth, little tiny spray, and you just kind of wipe this off here. Inside the bell, outside the bell. This can get off any water spots, fingerprints, and as a nice added bonus, makes it smell nice and lemony fresh. So just a little bit on the cloth. And now you have one beautifully cleaned trumpet all ready to play whatever music you'd like. All of the supplies I've talked about today can easily be purchased at your local music shop. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to contact us. All of our information can be found at our website, arrowheadmusicmentor.com. On behalf of Arrowhead Music, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope you found this video helpful, and hope you have a good day. Take care.